Hello and welcome back to the L15weekly podcast. We got plenty of action in a week that Liverpool managed to clinch their first league title in 30 years over the past week. Hot up. So, without further ado, we're giving you the latest news, views and opinions as per usual. Straight into
the L15 weekly podcast on YouTube, giving you the latest news, views and opinions from the football world. Join me every Friday from 5 p.m. for a brand new episode of the L15 weekly podcast.
But before we get into the Premier League action, we have to credit Northampton Town, who secured a promotion to League One with a 4-0 win over Exeter in the playoff final at Wembley. There were lots of games since we've last caught up, so we'll start with the big game, which was on the Thursday, which I recorded the podcast. Wish I'd have done that a bit later actually. Man City game, which ended up with Chelsea 2, Manchester City 1. Pulisic opened the scoring with a fantastic save, with a really good finish at the end, but Benjamin Mendy has to be at fault for some of the defending that he exhibited in that. But then Kevin De Bruyne scored a lovely free kick. And Willian scored the goal later on from the penalty spot after Fernandinho had handballed it and sort of like palmed it away from Tammy Abraham. It wasn't really, I think he could have decided to palm it away with his hand. Willian dispatched the penalty, and that was the goal that won Liverpool the league. The following day, Aston Villa also lost to Wolves in a 1-0 loss in the Midlands derby, with Leander Dendoncker getting the only goal of that game on that Saturday. Played Southampton, and Southampton gave them a bit of a hiding. Goals from Danny Ings, a mistake from Ben Foster led in on goal. James Ward-Prowse also scored, but Jan Bednarek got an own goal in the Watford net. But a 3-1 victory, keeping the good form going. They've been really on fire. Danny Ings, I mean, he could be Golden Boot. He's only one goal. It's getting tight down there at the bottom. Quite a few teams going to be hustling and bustling. I think it's inevitable that one of Watford, Villa, or two of Watford, Aston Villa and Bournemouth are going to be drop zone. Man United also battered Brighton in the Tuesday night fixture with goals from Mason Greenwood, 2 from Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes really in good form, isn't he? He's worth his money. He's worth his money, isn't he? I mean, it's about £50 million or something like that they paid for him. He's been playing so well. 7.97 average rating, 3 assists in 8 matches. I mean, what can you expect from the guy? He's just really good. I didn't expect. Man United, however, in some of the form of their life, they haven't lost since they've gone back. They've drawn 1, 3 since the coronavirus break, and now they're 5th in the Chelsea, who we'll talk about later on in this episode. And they're chasing down on Leicester as well. Leicester could well drop out up there, giving it a good tussle for the top 4. Brighton, however, could be sucked into that relegation zone. I mean, they're not quite. Bournemouth also lost to Newcastle, adding to their woes. They've lost every single game since coming back from the break. 2-0 to Crystal Palace, 1-0 to Wolves, and 4-1 to Newcastle. However, Newcastle, from losing to Man City in the Cup, they haven't lost in the league, winning at Sheffield United 3-0, 1-1 with Aston Villa, 4-1 to Bournemouth. Steve Bruce showing that he really does want to keep his job, if the takeover move goes through. Alan St. Maximin was on fire in that game with 3 assists. Him getting on the score sheet for Newcastle, or not as a West Brom fan, wanting him to come back to the club. But it was a really good goal from Dwight Gale, and they're playing quite well at the moment, Newcastle. However, Bournemouth in 19th at the moment, and that's a bit worrying if you're a Bournemouth fan. You don't want to see your team down there. You don't want to see them fighting around. Norwich look to be out of it after losing 4-0 to Arsenal. And meanwhile, after that game, Everton played Leicester. Everton giving Leicester a little bit of a hiding, a 2-1 victory last night. The night before. But it was terrible from Leicester score sheet. Glad to see Sigurdsson getting a goal. He hasn't scored for ages, has he? Him getting back on the score sheet. Anthony Gordon playing a good game at left wing as well, and player of the match with an assist for that Richarlison goal. And obviously Sigurdsson's passing from the penalty spot, but Iheanacho got a consolation. At the moment, they're not playing well. They haven't won since the break. They've drawn 2 and lost 2. They just don't look themselves. Brendan Rodgers needs to get them back. They could end up in a lot of trouble. They could end up, dropping out that top 4, maybe even not out those Europa League spots. There's a few teams down there that look hungrier than Leicester City at the moment. But then on Wednesday night, West Ham went and battered Chelsea in a 3-2 victory, in which West Ham was stopped from taking the lead earlier on from a Souček goal, but then did equalise. Willian came in and scored a penalty after Issa Diop had brought down in Pulisic, and then Souček scored, Antonio scored. Then Willian scored again. Willian doing quite well for Chelsea at the moment. Maybe he's playing for a move, who knows. But then Andrei Yarmolenko scored a goal on the break. Victory after such terrible form that they've been in recently. They're 3 points clear of the relegation zone now. They're starting to make the right moves and the right choices to get themselves away from. Then Sheffield United went and beat Tottenham. Sheffield, ridding themselves of that terrible form where they haven't won in after the break, but now they've gone and beaten Tottenham Hotspur 3-1. Well, obviously Keynes would have opened the scoring, but obviously it was disallowed by VAR. Mousset scored, then McBurney scored late on to seal the deal, but then Kane got a consolation late on, but it didn't really matter because Tottenham are 9th in the table. Tottenham Hotspur are 9th. Arsenal 8th. Oh my god, how are Arsenal ahead now? That doesn't make sense. I had Arsenal down to be mid-table now. But Tottenham, they've got a bit of work to do. They've looked alright since coming back from the break, but that was not the performance they wanted. And then, where to start with last night's game? Liverpool, now the champions of England after a 30-year wait. They've been incredible all season. I mean, it's not really champions should expect. You want to go out and show exactly that you deserve. Well, obviously they've shown that they deserve it by having the most league, but you should really be shown that you deserve a victory against, they're too excellent at the moment. Don't take that away from them. But surely if you're Liverpool, you'd want to put a marker down and say, this is our turf. We're the champions of England. But instead, they got absolutely dominated, and for lack of a better word, they were amazing to see City dominating. De Bruyne got the opening goal with a penalty after Joe Gomez had brought down Raheem Sterling in the build-up to the goal. Then Raheem Sterling scored a goal, and then Phil Foden scored a beautiful 1-2 goal, and then Oxlade-Chamberlain scored an own goal after Sterling had sort of played it into the corner, and Oxlade-Chamberlain deflected it into the... What can you expect from that? They're just really disappointing from Liverpool. I'm not really sure went out there with that sort of mentality, but it was terrible from Liverpool. But Man City, next season, league to play for, and I feel like they're going to win that. I feel like they might go out and get a good win in that cup. So now it's time to look ahead to this weekend's games, because there's another full round of fixtures coming in thick and fast. I'll pick out some that I've happened to notice. I'm going to go straight to the game that influences both ends of the table. Bournemouth have lost their last 4 matches. Manchester United are on the up, and they need Champions League football. They need it, really, to keep a few players. I think Paul Pogba will not be happy with another year of Europa League football. He might be on his way out. But Manchester, they might be going down. I'll tell you what, this could be a terrible, terrible turn of events for this sort of fairy tale story of Bournemouth and Eddie Howe. And then Wolves and Arsenal is at 5:30 Saturday. So it could be some very positive energy here. Wolves 11 on points. They look like they're on the up there. They're doing okay now. But of course, not as good as Arsenal would like to be. Obviously, they're better than that. And then another game, Chelsea-Watford, later on at table, not doing so well. But I mean, they're not doing great, are they? They're not great. They weren't great in their last game against West Ham, I mean. But Watford also... Another big game comes on Sunday the 5th of July, which is between Newcastle and West Ham United. Newcastle in great form. West Ham winning their last game might be, turning up now. It's the severity of the situation they're in terms of their club and the owners and things like that. So they've realised that, so hopefully they can put that into some action. It's time to move on to some Championship action now. It's been a very busy couple of rounds of fixtures in the Championship, and we'll have to start with the terrible games which happened on... It was Brentford 1, West Bromwich Albion 0, and Brentford took us apart, I think, in that first half. And it wasn't good enough in that first half. We came back in the second half with some really nice play. We did some really good things in that second half. Kelleher hit the bar. But inevitably, that goal from Ollie Watkins didn't look like he could deal with Ollie Watkins' movement. I don't rate Ollie Watkins particularly highly, but he just couldn't deal with the pace and movement of Ollie Watkins. But there's build up that game. There'll be more on that game, the impacts of that later on. Another game that really caught my eye was Leeds winning 1st and 5th. They did really well, Leeds, to win that game. Fulham, oh dear, they're in a bit of trouble. They're 5th now. Nottingham Forest have overtaken them after their next round of fixtures. But Fulham looking not as sharp as they were. Pretty neat at the top of the table now. 5 points ahead. They should be alright. Well, you'd hope they would be in that sort of situation. But Marek Rodak not really having a great game for Fulham either. But Leeds looking sharp with Busky and Jack Harrison getting those. So it's really good to see them getting back on the score. Otherwise, Middlesbrough welcome Neil Warnock to the Riverside Stadium. A win against Stoke City. 2-0 it was. Played really well actually. Is it James Tavernier? Not really sure about him. Marcus Tavernier, I mean, scored the goals in that game, and Wigan carried on their absolute blazing run of form. let's have a look how many matches they've lost for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 matches unbeaten for Wigan Athletic. Have they conceded in that time? Is this Wigan on the up? I wouldn't say that's going to impact the table hugely because they are in 14th place, but nice run of form to sort of round off the season again with a win against Blackburn. And Blackburn, although they lean into the promotion space, it doesn't look that way anymore. They're now 5 points away from it. Could happen, but I can't see that. But there was also midweek action in the Premier League, which started off with Fulham beating QPR 2-1, goals from Harry Arter and Christie, and also a goal from Jordan Hugill. But Fulham, getting back to winning ways. It's the first win that's the first win that they've had since they've come back from the break. Brentford beat Reading 3-0 with goals from Mbuemo, De Silva, and Valencia. They're not giving up on this promotion. Let's just say that. And Leeds drew 1-1 with Luton. I mean, that was quite a weird result considering and they've drawn 1-1 with them. But Luton obviously going to show some fighting spirit, so they've got something really to play for here, to keep their team. Wigan beat Stoke 3-0. I mean, when's it going to stop? Wigan, another goal, another clean sheet as well. Then West Brom got back to winning ways Wednesday. Another team that's gone under the radar a bit is Nottingham Forest. And they've just snuck above Fulham in race, so they might be in for automatic as well. So it's going to be interesting to see that. And Hull ended. But that is the end of the L15 weekly podcast, and I'll see you next time. Obviously, you can go and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you guys want to go and follow me right away. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.